Hi, my name is Lexi Salanci. I'm currently a graduate student down in Wake Forest in North Carolina. I graduated from Center in 2018, and today I'm just here on behalf of the American Physiological Society to sort of talk about the society and the benefits that it can provide for students should they join as a member. So, like I said, I graduated in 2018. I was part of the B&B program, and then I knew starting center that I wanted to do B&B, and I knew that I wanted to go to grad school. So my track has been pretty linear in that regard. But most of the people that I graduated with actually ended up going to med school. Um, I did 2 summers of research during my undergrad career. One summer was with Dr. Asmus in his lab, and then the next summer I went to Charlotte, North Carolina for a research experience as part of the NSF program. And so the APS Graduate Student Ambassador Program is basically to have graduate students like me serve as liaisons between undergrads as well as the society to sort of help promote, starting earlier in undergrad, the benefits of joining APS specifically, but as well as getting a membership into sort of any sort of scientific society. APS, the American Physiological Society, was founded in 1887. Its mission was to advance scientific discovery and understand life and improve human health. So it creates collaborative opportunities and spotlights scientific discoveries by connecting a global multidisciplinary community of scientists and educators. Additionally, it's one of the 26 member societies of the Federation of American Societies for Experimental Biology. Previously, there used to be a really big conference with at least 5 of the groups forming an annual academic conference, but they've recently split, so every society has its own starting this year. The key overall benefits of APS is that there are 16 highly respected scientific journals that you can publish through. So you have multiple options that you can use as a first choice for submitting your work. It provides professional development opportunities as early as undergrads, but all the way up through early career scientists. And there are numerous trainee awards, most of which have monetary compensation. And additionally, there are advocacy opportunities if that's also something you're interested in. Physiology, very broadly, is the study of life, health, and disease. So it ranges across cells, tissues, organs, all the way up to whole body animals. And you can look at things at multiples of these levels or just focus on one. And it's really the study of how do living systems interact with physical activity? How do they interact with their environment? And additionally, how does the genome and transcriptome and proteome translate into function at different levels from cell and beyond? Physiologists are trained professionals with master's or doctorate degrees typically who study physiology, or it can be anyone who specializes in physiological research. So you don't necessarily have to have the higher level degree. Physiologists study basically any of the organ systems that we're familiar with, so cardiovascular, central nervous, endocrinology, and metabolism. And there are specific sections within APS dedicated to each of these different organ systems, as well as sort of a physiological genomics group to help specialize and focus scientists for each group. They wanted me to present a few different kinds of questions that physiologists ask to give you a sense that it's not just one thing. So the first example is that you could be asking, how do mutations in genes affect cellular, organ, or bodily functions in health and disease? And so some of the tools that you might use to answer this question include molecular biology techniques such as cell culture, or you could work with in vivo models to measure organ function in rats or mice, and you can induce single gene mutations or gene knockouts. And the popular method for that nowadays is CRISPR-Cas9. A different type of question could be, does exercise decrease the loss of calcium from bones that occurs when a person is exposed to space? And we actually have a similar project to that going on at Wake right now that's looking in mice at how long-term exposure in space can affect sort of the joint and bone health and loss. And so you can use the similar molecular biology techniques such as qPCR, or you can use specialized X-ray machines to measure bone density before and after spaceflight. And that can be in animal models or it can be in humans if you have access to astronauts. A third type of question could be, why do some persons with diabetes have depressed heart pump function? So you can use cells isolated from rats and work with them ex vivo to study the differences between rats that did and did not have diabetes. You could also use electrophysiological and molecular biology techniques to look at cells or live animals. My work specifically is on the gene called CRITCAP3 for short, and my goal has been to characterize the role of this gene. It was initially characterizing its role in obesity, but the project has taken a very winding turn, and we're now trying to understand it in the context of the stress response, specifically social and environmental stressors. The main techniques that I've used have been, I've primarily used a rat strain that has a single gene deletion, which was done through CRISPR-Cas9. So we have rats that do and do not have CRITCAP3. And in those rats, I performed so many metabolic and behavioral analyses. It's too many rats. Molecular biology techniques, typically in tissues collected from the rats, include qPCR and RNA-seq to measure expression of RNA in the tissues, as well as different biochemistry techniques such as ELISAs and some Western blots. I also want to point out that, God, how long have I been in grad school? I think in 2020, maybe, I received the Data Sciences International Physiological, I can't actually see the rest of it, Trainee Research Award, which is a very long name, but it did come with $300. And so that is one of those APS trainee awards that I'll highlight later on. So overall, physiologists can do a lot of different things every day. So you can be designing and performing experiments, typically more performing if you're a graduate student or a lab tech, and then you'll have to analyze your data. Inevitably, when things don't work, you'll have to troubleshoot and learn new techniques. And then a big part of science as well as physiology is teaching and mentorship to develop connections with scientists more senior than us as well as those more junior than us so that we are sort of learning as the years go on, different things and communicating and sharing science with the next generation. And of course, sharing science not only with other scientists, but also with the public at large. Physiologists can work in many different settings. So the standard that you think of is universities and research labs there, but you can also have physiologists teaching at medical and dental schools or working in hospitals and physician offices. Physiologists can have roles in the government, and of course, they can have roles in drug and biotech pharma companies. And beyond just working at the bench top, there are other career choices as well that that physiology as well as a higher level degree can prepare you for. So that can be working with law and legal writing, business management. Science policy is a pretty popular one, and then scientific and medical writing has been rising in popularity in recent years, and that's actually what I'm interested in pursuing once I have the PhD. So just to give some ideas of job opportunities depending on the degree that you stop at, I want to emphasize that the degree you have does not always limit you to what you can achieve in your career. There are certain cases where you generally will need a PhD to be like a professor, but for the most part, it'll just change where you might start in a career. So for a bachelor's, you will typically be a lab tech, and that's a pretty popular option for people who are taking a year off after graduating from undergrad. And that can be at research labs and universities, or it can be in the industry. If you have a master's, you'll typically start a little bit higher. So you might be a clinical scientist or a lab program manager in sort of the same types of research settings. You also have more opportunities for sort of writing or as a medical sales representative or liaison. If you have a PhD and if you do or do not pursue postdoctoral training after that, the typical career path that most people think of is staying in academia. So that's becoming an assistant professor and working your way up to a full professor. And you can either teach at schools at center, so where it's more focused on the teaching rather than the research, or you can be at big research universities where you're primarily running your own lab and maybe doing a little teaching on the side. You can go into the other different careers that I mentioned, such as law and business, or you can enter into sort of the pharma and industry positions. Salary expectations, typically for a bachelor's degree, sort of being a lab tech in industry, you can start at $58,000. That sounds very nice compared to my current stipend. A master's degree will start a little bit higher at about $69,000. For stipends in graduate school, PhD students will typically have a range depending on where you're at in the school. So it's typically no lower than $25,000 and may range up to $35,000 if it's a higher cost of living area. Postdocs will make a little bit more than that, maybe about double or so. And then once you have the PhD and go on to different careers, in academia or industry, you'll typically be making about six figures. So how do you prepare for a career in physiology? The first and foremost thing is to take science courses, and Center has a lot of great courses, and I strongly support the B&B program. And it's really important to practice your writing and speaking skills. And Center is really great specifically for the speaking skills as well. Because a lot of students that I've seen during my time at Wake have not had the sort of strong grilling of public presentation that Center provides you, and it really shows. It really shows. And the other key things are getting a research experience in labs as much as you can. So APS offers undergrad summer research fellowships, and those are paid, and those are a really good experience. Similarly, the National Science Foundation offers research experience for undergrads, which are paid summer research experiences. For both of those, you can be traveling across the nation to different host universities and choosing different labs. So it's also a way to sort of explore new areas. Wake Forest has summer research programs as well, and I'm sure plenty of other universities have specific ones as well. And then Center does have a smaller number of positions than a bigger research university, but it is where I also got my start. The last key things that become more important as you get older and become more senior in the career path is talking to scientists in the fields that you find interesting and attending scientific meetings and conferences. So APS has its own conference that I mentioned starting this year. It's in Long Beach, California in April. The other one that I want to plug is the Kentucky Academy of Science, which is the one that I attended during my time at Center. And that's a smaller conference, more focused on undergrads. So it's a really good experience for building up your confidence in public speaking and then sort of getting used to what it's like presenting your own research. So just to summarize, APS offers professional development. That's through awards, networking, meetings, and events. There are advocacy resources as well as diversity and inclusion resources, and then numerous different publications and news outlets that you can get access to as a member. The key thing is that for students, membership is really cheap. So for students at undergrad or graduate school level, it's only $25 a year, and that gets you access to all the different benefits. So those benefits include, as I said, the fellowship opportunities, the different research awards, which can be abstract-based awards or travel awards. And then as well as you can network with physiologists online or at the conferences. Some of the research awards that I want to spotlight for specifically for undergrads is the Barbara A. Horwitz and John M. Horwitz Outstanding Undergrad Abstract Award. So that comes with $100 as well as a complimentary one-year membership to APS. The summer undergrad research fellowships are $4,000 for the summer. The Janet and Robert Smith Undergrad Researcher Award is $500. And then there are numerous awards that are open to undergrads and graduate students that typically come with the higher financial compensation, so typically between $300 and $500. And then one other possibility is the sort of local undergrad research and physiology awards, which don't come with financial compensation. So I was like, well, then what's the point? But they do add a nice little line on your resume or CV. And as you progress through your career, you will see that the CV becomes all important. And having that is a key benefit towards getting more interest from graduate schools, from medical schools, or moving beyond that when you are trying to find different jobs or different postdoctoral positions. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I have my email here and I can send these slides so that they're saved. You can read more about APS just by looking at physiology.org, and you can go through all of the different things if you're interested in. And then this is just the picture for the APS Summit this April at Long Beach, California.